Are you tired of watching the game and not knowing when to cheer? Are Sundays full of football and confusing lingo? Or maybe sports is a mainstay in your family and you feel on the outside looking in? Well, let's get you in the game. Welcome to Make Sports Easy, a football podcast where we take the seemingly complicated and confusing and make it easy for you. So, let's get the game started. Down, set, hut.
Welcome back to another episode of the Make Sports Easy podcast. I am your resident sports expert, Marcus Thomas, and I'm here to make sports easy for you, make it more relatable, make it fun, make it enjoyable as we get into the second round of the college football playoffs. We're going to get into our picks, but before that, go ahead and like, subscribe, follow, share, so that we can continue to build this community and make sports easy for everyone. Okay, so we did a little preview of games on the last episode, but today we're going to get into our actual picks and why we think these games are going to go the way that we think they're going to go. So we'll start with one of the first ones that's going to happen, and that's Miami versus Ohio State. Now, this is a huge game because they had a very massive matchup earlier on, and it's very controversial. Some people think Miami should have won. I'm in that camp because of a phantom pass interference call on Miami that let the game continue. However, I mean, that was decades ago. So you wonder how much that's going to play into it. Probably not that much, if I'm being honest with you. But we're looking at Ohio State. They've been pretty much a model of consistency throughout the entire season. We're basically the number one team wire to wire. Of course, after losing to Indiana, Indiana has that number one spot for valid reasons. But going back to the Ohio State Miami game, it's looking like it's going to be two very solid defenses going up against one not so good offense versus one that is heavily touted in Ohio State. And if you're just looking at the matchup that way, you're probably leaning Ohio State. Now, if you look at Ohio State's only loss of the season, they played a very athletic, a very physical defense in Indiana. And back to the first round, Miami, they really proved and showed themselves to have that level of defense as they went up against Texas A&M. It was a very strong defensive struggle. There were some weather elements to that as well. However, all that being even, both defenses showed up in that game. I feel like Miami has a very good opportunity at creating pressure and making Ohio State's quarterback very uncomfortable. And that is going to be one of the ways that Miami is going to give themselves a chance at winning this game. When you look at the passing attack for Miami, it's been kind of up and down throughout the season. You really have to look at Miami's quarterback in Carson Beck. He's played in big games at Georgia. However, so this game won't be something that's overwhelming to him, I don't feel. However, you're looking at Ohio State. They have a very strong defense. How is he going to play in that type of environment? You really go back to the Texas A&M game, their latest game, and yes, weather was a part of it. However, Carson Beck could have played better. Him being the wild card and their ability to pass the football, I feel like it's truly going to be a marker on if they can win this game or not. I know Miami wants to be physical and run the ball. However, Ohio State, I believe, is a tick above what they saw at Texas A&M. They'll both be, creative in their defensive attacks, but how is that going to pan out over the course of the game? So if I had to pick, I would lean Ohio State. Ohio State has just been more consistent. It's not so much about Miami has no chance in this game, which a lot of the people who do the betting, they're thinking it's going to be a very lopsided game in Ohio State's favor. However, if Carson Beck in the passing offense of Miami can really show up, because they were able to run the ball towards the end of that game to kind of war on Texas A&M. But I don't think they'll be able to do the same thing against Ohio State. I don't think they're just going to be able to line up and run it straight down Ohio State's throat. They're going to have to be able to mix it up and be creative. And they have the playmakers to do that. It's just if the play calling, if the offensive line is going to be able to protect Carson Beck, and is he going to protect the football and not have fumbles or throw interceptions in the game, because they're playing against very opportunistic defense as well. And their defensive coordinator, I won't go too much into the weeds here, is a very high caliber defensive coordinator. So with that, we'll go with Miami losing to Ohio State in the second round and then advancing to the semifinals. Moving on to the next game, we'll pick the Georgia Ole Miss game. Actually, no, let's leave that whole Lane Kiffin conversation for the end. Let's move on to the Indiana Alabama game. Indiana, Alabama. What kind of world are we living in where we're talking about, can Alabama possibly beat Indiana? This just goes to show how um, large of a turnaround this program has seen, and that they are truly a championship contender and undefeated. Haven't lost a game this year. They've played in but they've also been tested. They're not just undefeated and haven't played anybody. They've played quality teams and have also played in close games where they've had some adversity. So they've done it all. They've blown out teams. They've played in close games, and they figured out a way to win at the end of the day. With that being said, Alabama, one of the most, what would you say, the most heralded programs in college football history. I am trying to figure out a way how to say they have a chance, because once again in the last round they still had struggles running the football. And while they did start to catch a rhythm and come on late, can they continue that process? Can they still continue to have not so much a overwhelmingly powerful running game, but something that they can rely on, to where their quarterback Ty Simpson isn't pressured to do everything, as far as making plays, throwing the ball, making plays with his legs, running it, and also that he's going to see a lot of pressure against that Indiana defense. So can he manipulate the defense in a way that will give him advantages to take advantage of their aggressiveness? It is going to be a tall task for Alabama. I'm not going to sit here and pretend. They have the horses. They can definitely make it happen. But we're talking about, the question is potential versus what they've actually shown. And while they had a great second half, before that, the last 6 quarters, even if you go back to the Auburn game, they haven't had a lot of great football on tape. So Indiana has been the model consistency of a great program this year. If they play their game, Indiana wins. It's almost regardless of what Alabama does, but it just seems like Indiana is that freight train rolling down the hill, and nobody's really going to stop them. Ohio State got close. Penn State even got close. It's just looking at it like someone's going to have to come with a game plan and execution out of this world right now to stop them with the momentum. So I got Indiana in this one just because they have the quarterback, the Heisman Trophy winner, and they have a coach that has what seems to be an endless chip on his shoulder. So we'll see how they come out. And if Alabama can keep the game close, I feel like they have a chance because they have a whole lot of talent. So if their defense can bow up and their um offense can be respectable as well as force a turnover, at least a turnover or two. If the defense can do that and keep the game close in the fourth quarter, then Alabama has a chance. But if it's one of those games, if it's like Georgia in the SEC championship game, and if they start too late to kind of turn on the Jets, it's going to be too late because Indiana's not that has not shown to be that team this year. Alabama has shown to have slow starts, so we'll see how that goes. But my pick is the Indiana Hoosiers over the Alabama Crimson Tide. The next game we'll go to, because we have 4 games and we've done 2 so far. So the third game we'll talk about is the Oregon football game against Texas Tech. This right here, this game is going to be, I think, the spectacle of the New Year's because no one really knows anything about Texas Tech from a national standpoint. Texas Tech is one of those solid teams on both sides of the football. They don't have like a glaring weakness or it's like, oh, if this don't show up or that. They just been fairly consistent on both sides of the football, and they've been explosive. They've been opportunistic on defense, turning the ball over. I can see that the winner of this game, Oregon still gives me some questions from time to time, but this game is the only game that's left that I'm like, whoever wins this game could very well come from, a place of no one really betting on them to winning the whole thing. And Oregon is just such a juggernaut when it comes to offense and defense. They're good as well. However, I feel like Texas Tech not only has something to prove, but they have the horses to run the race. And I'm really excited to see. This one is a pick 'em. I don't really know how this game is gonna go. I if I ain't gonna say because I ain't gonna put no money on it like that. But I'm saying like if you put me to it and we're watching the game, it's like, all right, man, the game's about to start. Let's just who you pulling for? Who you think got this one? I'm gonna go with Texas Tech. As weird as it may sound, and I think they could be hot enough to where they could win the whole thing. So I mean, they got the bye, so they earned that 4 seed. So we'll see how that goes. I think just overall their overall play on both sides of the football is something that will give them the opportunity late in the game to force a turnover and win a close one. I by no means think this is going to be one-sided. I don't, only from a historical standpoint, because Oregon always has like this super powerful offense, so you think, oh, they're just gonna put up a whole bunch of points. However, if I'm looking at the first game we talked about and the second game we talking about, I could see both of those games potentially being lopsided. There's an opportunity and a chance there because of how Miami has played this year and the inconsistency of Alabama, that they both could be down big in their games. This Oregon Texas Tech game, I I think this one could be a barn burner. In other words, a lot of points are going to be scored, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'll pick Texas Tech in this one. And to move on to the last game, a lot of people are questioning how, in the Ole Miss Georgia game, how Ole Miss is going to continue to perform in the absence of Lane Kiffin. Now, Lane Kiffin was Ole Miss's head coach for the past, I think he's either been there like 4 or 5 years. He's been there for a little while. And he's brought them to a level of success in consecutive years that they have never seen. And this coach took another job at another school, kind of out of the blue, if you will. And so he's going to LSU, which is a in conference rival with them. So because of the way the calendar works and the dynamics between the two teams in question, he's no longer coaching the team. So he did not coach the team going into these playoffs. So they have a whole new coach. And first round they played against Tulane, an opponent they already have prepared for, and they defeated them. So that coach won his first head coaching game. So he's 1-0. Now he's going against Kirby Smart at Georgia, who has won more national championships than he has won actual games. So you're looking at the level of experience and how that is going to affect how this game is played. Kirby, a very defensive minded, run game oriented head coach, is always looking to out physical the other team. Now, they defeated Ole Miss earlier in the year. However, the Ole Miss's quarterback still had a good day. So you really just you're curious how I don't have a question that Ole Miss is going to be able to score points. They just have that ability. And Georgia, as of late, has turned into the Georgia, not so much of old, but the Georgia that we kind of more so expected going into the season. Georgia throughout the year has had these weird games, and they just keep winning them where they don't show up in the first half. They just start slow, and all of a sudden they put their foot on the gas, and it's like you can't stop them. And it's like, well, here they come again, making a comeback, or So you wonder if they're going to have that level of performance going into this game or not, because Georgia kind of more. I hate to put it this way, but they kind of control their own destiny in this way. They've defeated this team. It's difficult to beat a team twice. Actually, it's never happened in this college football playoff era. If you beat a team in the regular season, you have not beaten them in the playoffs. It's only happened that one time, but that wasn't a quote unquote Power Four team. So how's that going to look? How's that going to play out? Inexperience versus experience. I would love to say that it would be a very close game and Ole Miss will show themselves. You will love to see how motivated they come out, because this is kind of a prove it game for them, because Lane didn't beat them, but we can beat them without him. It's not about him, it's about us. So Ole Miss has the talent. They have the talent to do it. However, Georgia has been there, done that, and it's almost they're kind of teeter tottering on that Georgia or that Alabama, Nick Saban type conversation where someone's gonna have to beat them. They're gonna have to prove it before I say they're gonna lose. So with that being said, I really enjoy watching Ole Miss's quarterback play. Trinidad, however, if there was this quarterback versus quarterback, I'd pick Ole Miss, but Ole Miss didn't win last time. So I'm pulling. I'm gonna see Georgia. I think Georgia's gonna pull this one out. However they do it, I don't think it's gonna be pretty. I think that's what I'm trying to say. It might not look pretty or explosive or crazy, but it'll be slow, methodical, and they'll make it happen. And that defense for Kirby, I think, is gonna be on fire. So with that, I want to close these out on this one fact that I wanted to share with you all. Last week, but I'll say it for this week. You got to really look at this stat, and there's some nuance to it, so take it as you will. The team that had the bye last year in last year's playoffs, so the top four teams got a bye. All four of those teams lost. So the teams that got byes this year: Indiana, Ohio State, Georgia, and Texas Tech. Will the trend continue where these teams will not win again? What is it about having that bye week? Is it you just got a little rust you got to shake off? Like, what is it about that? Now, the nuance to that is that all four seeds aren't created equal. The last top four seeds from this year were unequivocally the 1, 2, 3, and 4. They were ranked that way. Last year, there were teams that got automatic bids and buys by winning their conference championship. So, if you were ranked number 3, but you didn't win your conference, then you didn't get a bye. So that's why these aren't created equal. However, we'll see how that works. If this bye week is something that these coaches have mastered, as far as how do we keep our teams engaged and prepared for a matchup of this magnitude. With that, I'll leave you to enjoy your New Year's celebration and to get ready for a great 2026 and whatever it is that you do. But especially at here from Make Sports Easy, we just want to wish y'all nothing but the best, and can't wait to continue to build on this community, provide y'all with the most value possible, and we just ask that once again, subscribe, follow, hit that share button, let us know how we can continue to build this community and what other sports you all are interested in. We got a whole litany of things we can talk about, especially with the Olympics coming up. So with that, I want y'all to take it easy, continue to make sports easy, and have a happy new year. Let's go.